first class that when you get the Judeo-Christian beliefs, the fundamental is that it is a unity. In fact, it is such a tight unity that we don't even sense a consciousness of the soul. Okay? Which is a point I won't get to later, I should get into now. It is a very strange thing. It's one of the arguments that the Enlightenment people use against the existence of the soul. You know, if you say we have a hand, we have a foot, we have a brain, we have eyes, you can detect all of those things through the senses. But if you say you have a soul, we're not even conscious of it. Right? We don't even have a consciousness that we have a soul. How do we derive the knowledge that we have a soul? We derive it from philosophy and theology, from reason and faith. We don't derive it from sense knowledge of the existence of the soul. So to prove the existence of the soul, you must go about it in a way different than just self-knowledge.
I guess one of the things that seems problematic about the defined doctrine is that there are people in the world who are profoundly mentally ill, whose thought processes are radically irrational through no fault of their own. There are people who are profoundly mentally retarded, who also have basically no capacity for rational thought in the way that the church would have defined it. And yet they were...
Now, the church makes those exceptions, and so did Thomas. They come from Thomas. Thomas says that the complete human being in which the body and the soul are both functioning does not take place until the child reaches the age of reason, and in the case of the insane, it never happens.
Are they less human then, because they don't have that capacity for rational...
They have a grave human deficiency, yes. Those are difficult cases.
And is that currently the language that's still in play?
Currently, the language is still in play. I believe so, because Thomas is, you get into the course of the reputation of Thomas. Thomas had a very high reputation. He starts going down. You get John Paul II putting emphasis on phenomenology and existentialism. So you get a different kind of emphasis on some things than elsewhere. But when you take a series of popes who have written encyclicals about the importance, the fundamental importance of Thomas to Catholic theology, you would have to say still in play. That doesn't mean that it's not, that is not a defined doctrine. There's plenty of room to dispute it and argue about it.
I think
unlike the fundamental questions of the existence of the soul, the spirituality of the soul, and the eternity of the soul.
Are the insane necessarily irrational though? Because, like, I mean, you, Mr. Talbot probably know more, or Dr. Nofi as well. But like, the way I understand at least schizophrenia is that they have a delusion, but then all their actions within that delusion are perfectly rational. So...
Well, in the most advanced states of schizophrenia, there's a complete disintegration of mind.
Okay, I didn't see that.
So you get
at least to the observer, anyway.
To become very disorganized.
Yeah.
It's actually it's not every schizophrenic has the ability to hold on to an organized delusional system.
So what makes them schizophrenic?
The lack of touch with reality. You can still be out of touch with reality, but not have like a paranoid system in place.
I see.
And it's actually diagnosed as disorganized schizophrenia. As
Paranoid, delusional, yeah.
Those are fringe areas of what we're trying to deal with. Let me say that Thomas says that the soul does not bring a new life, but a higher life to the body. And that the higher life must be carried on through the body, the organism. And so it's finishing off a thing that is half completed by nature. Okay, that other half is, as the scholastics are fond of saying, grace completes nature. So you get soul, a kind of grace that is completing the nature.
I'm sorry, and Thomas's concept of grace, I'm assuming, I'm more familiar with Augustine. Is it similar to Augustine's? Is it freely given? Is it given immediately? Where does grace come in for Thomas?
Yes, he agrees with Augustine pretty much on the notion of grace, and he brings it in here, dealing with the soul, that there is a completion of nature through the soul and through grace.
Freely given?
Freely given. That's the definition of grace.
And by the age of 7 or immediately or?
I don't know, he doesn't, I don't remember him dealing a lot with the exceptional cases. He's trying to establish the points that relate to the function of the soul and the immortality of the soul. So I don't know what he would say about it. I can't recall.
I'm just hooking it up with free will and wondering where it goes.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's important. One of Thomas's chief arguments relates to this higher level of the soul being a higher level of thinking, like mathematical thinking, metaphysical thinking, the free will and conscience. These are the things that Thomas particularly assigns to the highest functions of the soul, which are elevating the brain. He used that term, elevating. He's elevating the body. And of course, our society does not believe in the divine origin of the soul, and that can create a big problem, since eternal hopes are based on the fact that the soul has an existence outside the body after death.
I think we have about 5 minutes left.
Was that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me make a point. The point about the soul as the form of the body. In the scholastic philosophy and theology, the term form is used. All kinds of things have both matter and form. And the form of the body is the soul. So the soul gives it life. The soul raises sense life to that other higher level. And the soul, as the form of the body, is what allows it to engage in universals and higher level thinking, which Thomas assigns as the function of the soul. Now, one of the things that Paul does, he sets out for us in Corinthians a sequence of what happens to the soul and the body. And let me read it to you. As I read it to you, see if you can see the 3 stages of the body and soul relationship.